Uh, 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 uh. Oh, I think everything's working now. I've been so absent-minded today. First I forgot to plug in my microphone, and then I forgot to plug in my Ethernet cable for the internet. Oops. Okay. I think it's about time I begin. There we go. Ah. Hello. I swear as soon as I start, my dog is going to come into my room. Maybe I should explain this a bit, but when I'm streaming, I actually have live stream open on my phone so I can read the chat. Look, it's me from a few seconds ago. You can look back in time. So that's how I read the chat. And there's also an app I can use on my phone to control this live stream. I'm just looking concerned because the internet doesn't seem to be working properly. It keeps dropping frames. Oh, so there's supposed to be a guest who would come on today, but I don't know what happened. Maybe, I hope nothing bad happened, but they haven't been replying to my confirmation messages. So it's just gonna be me once again today talking about once again some random stuffs. I really hope that the stream quality is not lagging too much and it's okay. So another day of random things. So this is kind of becoming a, I don't know if I can call it just a ranting live stream or a random thoughts live stream, which was not what I intended to begin with. But of course, if that's the direction it's going, and why not? I'm trying my best to go with the flow here. Pretty sure next week we'll have a guest because I've been communicating with that person and they seem to be pretty on board with the whole thing. I found that if I'm not in constant communication with the guest, sometimes things just don't happen when it comes the time to do the interview, which was something I was a little surprised by because I figured if someone has trouble coming on for an interview, they would mention it upon, like, they would say no immediately when you ask if they want to come on for an interview. But what I found is usually there's complications before the decided day. So it's just been interesting figuring out how to manage that. And I'm still trying to. I've been thinking about a way to make this go a little smoother. Because going through the effort to plan for a bunch of guests to come on and then having half of those not work out is just very troublesome and not time efficient more than anything. And so, been thinking a little bit about that. And it's kind of sad because I was really looking forward to today's interview. And that's another thing, because the podcast definitely gives my week a rhythm. So it's like I have a day where I can research the person a little, and then there's always a certain degree of excitement and anticipation when I get to talk to them. So having that fall through at the last moment so many times is just very tiring. So since the whole planning guest thing hasn't been working, I've been thinking about what I can do to fix that issue. I know that when you refer someone through another person, they're more likely to show up to something. That's a whole nother degree of trouble. And I kind of came to this realization this week or last week where I definitely want to take this thing more towards a learning, because I really enjoyed talking about learning last week, and I was thinking I want to take this podcast more in a learning direction. And of course I'm trying to use it a lot for practice in my own speech and communication. So maybe all these so-called failures or all the trouble getting guests on the show is just because I'll just treat it like a chance to improve on my own speech and confidence in this podcast presentation. So if I would take it in a more learning-based direction, I think I still really do want to target people who haven't had a traditional education, but it would also be fun to talk to people about how they learn certain things or their methods of improving at certain skills or how they were able to accomplish certain tasks. And there's a very fine line between that and the whole self-improvement scene. And I definitely want to lean more to the education side of it. So it might be fun if I had a topic I wanted to get into and then I would research people who might know more about that thing. For example, something I've always loved, even though I have zero expertise in it, is flying machines and stuff like the Wright brothers flying machines, and just that time when people started trying to make flying machines, aviation devices. Oh, okay, Garu. You didn't miss much. And so if I would be able to do some research on that and then search for people who might know more about something like aviation or flying machines and go out and try to find a way to get them on the show to interview them. Maybe I can say it's a podcast about learning and unconventional school and how to self-direct your learning, it might be interesting to them. I don't know. That's something worth a try. There's still the issue of actually getting people to come onto the show, though. That's the thing, really. And another option would be to... So I really have a few options here. I think I'll keep trying for a while just because it might just be me being very unlucky. I might try to do in a way where I remind people more and send them emails constantly after they've agreed to come onto the show, so I keep the communication going. Or I could try scheduling interviews not at the same time, not live. So maybe I could do the interview off live, and then I could even play a rerun at this time instead. And then when that maybe picks up some steam eventually, probably I'll have less trouble getting people actually onto the show, because if the show has little popularity, I think they'd be less likely to just forget about it or not come on without notice, something like this. Because that's just, to go through it so many times is, at the very least, I'll say it's very inefficient. That's another option. So I think I'll try the first and see how it goes. And then if that doesn't work, I'll try to do interviews not at a set time. So I'll schedule a time that really works for them right away and record the interview off live. And then definitely, if I have to keep doing these live streams by myself, I might as well make it a little more fun, right? And instead of just me talking about random stuff every time, I think if it's actually has some direction, that'd be more interesting. So just trying to think of ideas for that. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the podcast, really. Oh yeah, there is one more thing though. When I started doing this, I reached out to some people for some advice on how I should conduct it. And one thing that came up a lot was having a co-host, because for someone who's inexperienced, it's really hard to solo host a podcast, as you see me doing right now. If you're not naturally, I think, super energetic person who can think of things to say at the blink of an eye, it's very difficult to host a podcast by yourself. But when you have a co-host or two co-hosts, it makes it much easier to bounce ideas off of them. So I did try to search for a co-host at the start of this, but I couldn't really find anyone super suitable who matched the atmosphere I was going for, so I might try to reconduct my search. So that's another thing I could try. Yeah, so it might just be my luck. It might just be, I don't know, the way I'm going about it, or it just needs more time. And suppose it's time to talk about some random stuff then. Or should I say, see, if I was more energetic, I could say, it's time to talk about some more random stuff. Doesn't seem right though. It's another thing that will take time, probably. It's just me figuring out how I want to act for the camera. Because you can't... Okay, I guess that's a good segue into the first thing I want to talk about, which is the word professionalism. That's a word which has been in my mind a lot these days. Professionalism. Professionalism. What does professionalism mean? Especially after I spent about 2 years in Japan, where professionalism is super, 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 super important in a lot of parts of life. It's just something I'm constantly thinking about after I've come back to America. What does professionalism mean, really? Pre-recording sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I think I might have to go about that. So before I talk about professionalism, I'll just mention my thoughts on pre-recording, since it's this whole thing about, I want to talk about this without sounding rude to anybody who might have not been able to make it on the show, because everyone has reasons and stuff comes up, and let's hope nothing bad has happened that would prevent someone from coming on. But when you offer, okay, so what happens is I reach out to someone and ask if they'd like to come on for an interview, and it's there's like this period of time after they say yes where you have to act on it, or else there's a really high chance they'll change their mind about it or forget about it. And then there's also, it takes a period of time once you send out a request for the person to reply. So sometimes they will reply very quickly, sometimes they will take longer, and you can't really predict that. So once they've said yes, they're excited about it. And then if you don't act on that fast enough, what happens from what I've experienced for doing this for, I don't know, a few months, is that a lot of those people will lose interest or forget, or schedule something else to happen on the same day. And so I think it's really important, once you receive that yes, to schedule right away, or schedule like the closest date that they're available. Otherwise things kind of fall through. The thing is, when you're doing a weekly live stream, you can't really control the scheduling as well. So then what happens is you send out a bunch of messages asking if people are available. They reply at unpredictable times. And then the people who say yes, sometimes when they said yes, it's a really bad time because you're all booked. So you have to put them further in the calendar. And then sometimes when nobody says yes, you really need someone to come on the next week, but nobody's available. It just makes things very difficult. So, and then they're more likely to forget about it, and then plans fall through. But if it's pre-recorded, it's much easier to come up with a day where they're still excited to do it and everyone's available, and it's also bright outside, so I don't have to use this terrible lighting. You need to do the same you did with me. Ask them one day before. If if it were that simple, it would be great. If it were only that simple. If I asked anybody and they would give me a reply, yes or no, one day before, that would just be amazing and so much less stress. But that's not how people work, unfortunately. Yeah, it might be an interesting idea to try, actually, if I stop and think about it, to ask guests if they'd like to come on the next day. Because in that case, maybe more people will say no, but it takes care of the problem of them losing interest or forgetting. And that's one half of the problem taken out of the equation, which is at least better than having all these different issues that could come up. So that might be something interesting to experiment with. I mean, there's not much I can lose right now, so why not, right? Or even the same week. It would also make the cast more flexible. The cast more flexible. What do you mean by flexible? Like, different days every week? I see. Yeah, I thought for a live stream it would have to be the same day every week for people to know when it was happening. But I mean, maybe my thinking is too rigid there. Yeah, if it's pre-recorded, I could also just do random days of the week at different times, and then I could always re-stream it at the same time every week. Just to make sure I have that consistent time frame where people will always know that this is going on. Why not do that? There is something special about doing interviews live because thank you, Kai. There is something interesting about doing interviews live because I think it makes the person being interviewed more nervous, or they feel like they have an audience. And it's actually a really good thing, in my opinion. It's a good thing. I guess I have several things I can try. So I'll try those out, see if anything works. I mean, when I stop to think about it, yeah, I'm not really offering much for the guest coming on. It's not offering much, but I'm sure there's a way to make it work. And so I need more people. I'll need to send invitations to more people, and then on the same week as well. Yeah, if I pre-record, the quality will definitely be better, since I probably won't do it at night. And nah. Yeah, the only thing is Q&A. Which is a nice idea, however, not super duper applicable at the moment, which is fine. Maybe one day when there's the day when there's more of an audience, and then it switches to more consistent live, it would be nice to have Q&A. Radio-like stuff. Yeah, I think I do have to plan out some radio-like stuff to make this interesting, because me doing these solo live streams is becoming much more frequent than I would prefer. But that's what's happening, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to make the most of that and make them more interesting and substantial. Yes. I forget what I was talking about earlier. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about professionalism. And it kind of relates to this whole live streaming thing too. Exactly. You need to pick your voice to press it. Hype train aggressive. I have to find my voice, right? I don't know. I feel like currently I'm using my more of my ASMR voice. Oh shit. See, what is professionalism? Are you allowed to swear on a live stream? What kind of interview do you want? Joe Rogan is like chill, swearing, ask questions you're not supposed to ask kind of live stream dude. Not live stream, interviewer. And then there's, I don't know. Honestly, all the interviews I enjoy are more chill and they can swear. So I don't know why I'm thinking about this. You're literally allowed to do anything if you feel like you should do it. Hmm. Hmm. There's something that's been bugging me though, which is well, there's one definition of professionalism I agree a lot with, but it's been bugging me. I don't know who said it, but something about, sometimes you have a job you have to get done. And to get that job done, you need to put aside part of yourself, right? So, where am I going with this? It's like, I do need to define a character, right? Because if you're not feeling up to doing something one day, but it's required to get the job done, doesn't mean you can just drop all your responsibilities and forget about the job. I'm being very vague. It's like one day you show up to work and you're very depressed, but you can't just but you have, I don't know, you have customers to attend to. You can't just forget about all your jobs and duties and not attend to your customers. You got to put that part of yourself aside. It's definitely more about you being an entertainer than being something only for you, though. Then it makes sense. Yeah, right. It's not just for me. So it's like trying to find the best way to communicate with those people I want to reach. And that's what I need to figure out, which is difficult. I think that's only something that will come with time. Because if you look at, I don't know, some pretty popular YouTubers right now, or I don't know, mostly popular YouTubers, you'll see in their past videos, they usually talk really softly and don't know what they're talking about. But it's like, oh, I keep talking about drawing, but it's like when you start drawing, you have these little mistakes you repeat or little faults in your art. But as you develop your skills, those things actually become what makes your art special, even though your technique gets more polished. In the same way, most people, when they start out doing something like this, where it's radio or broadcast or some sort of public speaking, especially when it's less edited, they're very quiet and they don't know what they're talking about, and they go on and ramble, but after hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of practice, it eventually develops. Walk your path. You can literally create your own rules. The proper audience will come with time. Even if it is small in this case, I'm sure it will be something you're proud of. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna give up. It's just trying to figure out the next step, I think. Because obviously what's been working isn't really working at the moment, at least. So I need to do something. And I kind of ran out of stuff to talk about today, so I'm a bit slow, but maybe it is a slow live stream day. Hmm. I'll have to see what some other streamers do to figure out how to fill in the time when I'm talking to myself. Oof. What I found is most people really do want to be interviewed. People want to be interviewed. Like, they want to talk about themselves. It's just getting them on here while this thing is live, which is the problem. Getting them on here. Like, how do I get people to show up? How do I get people to show up? I think maybe if I get the feeling someone's not gonna show up, I just don't even bother. I don't know. Because it's pretty obvious when someone really wants to show up. It's pretty obvious. More emails. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah, so it's good because I'm not. None of my streams have really had this feeling before, which is fine. I think when there's a change, that's when something changes, you discover something new, right? And then I'm going to be able to build on that the next time. It's fine. I don't really know what I'm doing right now, but it's okay. And which reminds me of the other thing I want to talk about, which is yes, feeling stuck, I think, cuz I'm pretty sure everybody, unless you're not fully, I don't know, unless your brain is missing something, everybody has felt stuck at some point. And this especially applies to people who have trouble with school, or I don't know. Honestly, for people who have trouble with school, I'm sure they feel stuck in similar ways, but every single person has felt stuck in some way at some point of their life. But especially when it comes to dropouts or people who have decided to figure out how to navigate an uncharted path with like compared to what the people are doing around them or what society has decided is a normal way to do things. That place of being stuck, it's very difficult to navigate out of that when you don't have any examples of how to navigate out of that. And being able to provide people with tools to navigate out of that is something I'm really interested in. But it's kind of an abstract concept. But I feel like if I could get people to describe how they were able to learn how to do certain things, it would really be able to provide people with some tools for getting unstuck. Because once everything seems so easy and so obvious when you figured out how to do it, and when you've figured out all the parts and where everything should go, it seems so obvious, and you can pinpoint exactly what you did to make it work. But before that happens, before you have any clue and before you have any guidance, it's impossible. And of course you're going to feel stuck when you don't see any progress and when you have zero idea of what you're doing. And I think a lot, especially right now, I think a lot of young people feel stuck. Young people feel stuck because I mean, look at the world now, and then especially in the US, right? I mean, I can only speak from the US because I hear news about every day, but basically California is burning down, and it's not just once in a year thing anymore, which is kind of what kept the ecosystem in balance. It's gone out of control. And then when there's problems like that, yeah, there's the fire problem, and then it's not only California, there's other parts, the US too. Plus, with climate change, a lot of the lakes are drying up, and people can't get access to water. So lakes and reservoirs are drying up. When you don't have access to water, what in the world are you supposed to do? Because civilizations were built where water sources were. So now we don't even have water. How do you live? So they have to carry water bottles from places with water to places without water, and even though there's pipes, the infrastructure is there because there's no water. The water can't actually travel through the pipes, so they have to use these water bottles. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, sometimes it seems like the big problems are just popping up all over the place. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I'm not saying this out of any, how do I put this? I'm not saying this in a way where I'm complaining about anything, I think. It's just kind of stating the facts, I would say. And it might be kind of doomer mentality, but I'm coming doomer mentality. I'm coming at it from a way where it's where I want to figure out how to, where I want to find solutions, if that makes any sense. I want to find solutions. But I do think it's when you're surrounded by those things, and maybe when you're not in the best life circumstances, or you're stuck with family who might not be supportive, how do you get unstuck, right? How do you get unstuck from that? And then when you step out of your little bubble you're stuck in, there's this huge world you're stuck in too. So I guess that's what I mean by a lot of young people feel stuck. And then there's so many expectations. Especially if you're from I don't know, it doesn't really matter your background, to be honest. Because there's always going to be something you're stuck in. And yeah, I think some people have an easier time just moving forward and following what's been set out for them, which is cool if it works for you. It's just that there are some people where that does not work, either because by following that their existence becomes absolutely miserable and they lose that drive or purpose to their life, which keeps them living, right? And when that happens, it's just not an option to keep following that. It's just not an option. So I want these conversations and this podcast to be more for those people than anything, just because the resources are more limited, I think. Yeah, so exactly. Good. It's important to move forward even when you're stuck. It's important to keep trying to move forward. Or if I had this image come to my mind today, because it would kind of describe the feeling I had when I left school, and then little breakthroughs after that. And the image I had was, it's like a water balloon. There's a water balloon, and then you have a needle, and you're trying to figure out how to pop this water balloon, right? And then I will try to do the imagery. Do I have anything that looks like a water balloon? Not really. I mean, from me looking around, it should be pretty obvious I have a lot of clutter. Yeah, from this angle, it looks alright, but what should I use? I'll use a mouse, I guess. But you have a water balloon, and then there's like a needle. I don't want to destroy this paintbrush. This one's okay. And then you keep trying to figure out how to pop the water balloon. Awkward imagery. Okay. My pop filter is very old. It does that sometimes. Please forgive it. But here. You keep trying to pop the water balloon and it just won't pop. Maybe your needle's super dull or something, I don't know. Or I don't know, for some reason it's not gonna pop. So you keep trying to pop it, but it won't pop, and you're like, what the fuck? Why isn't it popping? Just want it to pop. It should pop. This is a needle. It's a water balloon. Why isn't it working? So of course you're super frustrated. So you like go crazy and try to pop the the darn thing. You try to pop the water balloon, but it won't pop. And you try all sorts of different ways to pop the balloon, right? You like drop the balloon on the needle, you flip the balloon in the air and like throw the needle at it. And you, I don't know, you sit on the balloon and try to use the needle to pop it. But it won't pop the balloon. So then you're like, okay, maybe it's not worth it, you know? Maybe I'm gonna just give up on this whole thing. So you're like, all right, here's the balloon, here's my needle, you know, I'm just gonna leave. This is not worth it. I've tried to pop this thing 1,000 times in different ways. It's not popping. They were right. I can't pop this balloon with a needle, even though it looks easy. I don't know. Nothing looks easy, right? I mean, anything that looks easy is actually super hard, so why did I even try? And then you start to leave and you're like, no, actually, wait. Wait, before I leave this needle, this water balloon, before I leave the water balloon, I'm just gonna give it one more try. So you come back and you're like, all right, yeah, I'm frustrated, I want to give up, I hate my life, but I'm still gonna try to pop this water balloon. So, be like, all right, please God, let this needle poke be the time I can actually pop the balloon. You're like, and it doesn't pop. Still doesn't pop. You're like, okay, yeah, God doesn't exist after all. God doesn't exist after all. I even came back and gave it a try after I almost gave up. But the needle doesn't work. So then you're like, oh, whatever. And you're like, you play around with it a little. Nothing happens. And then you just like, whatever. And you just like, at the last moment, your water balloon is sitting here peacefully. And you're just kind of frustrated and angry, and you've actually given up at this point. You haven't stopped, you haven't walked away, but you've actually given up at this point. And then just like kind of just for the fun of it, you throw the needle at the balloon. You're like, whatever. And then the balloon pops. That's basically all my breakthroughs since leaving high school have been like that. Thank you for listening to my story. It's like some sort of, what do they call it? Koan in meditation. So I hope it brought some of you to enlightenment. Thank you very much. No, but seriously. So a lot of my experiences have been just trying to do things over and over and over again. Nothing works. And then when you've almost seemed to give up, something happens and it all falls together. So, but all those previous times were necessary. That's the special part of it. You can't just reach that last moment where everything works without all those previous failures. Seems like a painful life. Do you want some help there? I don't know. I feel like is it not a common experience to try to figure out how to do something over and over again, have it not work? Well, I think there is a lot of frustration when it comes to feeling like you're stuck in a situation, because you're never really stuck. I mean, someone could be in the exact same situation as you and feel like everything is going perfectly. I guess it's kind of like a problem solving metaphor. It's kind of related to what I'm trying to do with this podcast thing and how I'm trying to figure out how to get people on, how to get people to come on for an interview. And it's a little frustrating because the way it seems like it should work, it isn't exactly working as planned. But then I'm sure once I figured out the best way to do things, or I figured out the best way to present myself, or I figured out the best way to talk, or I figured out the best format to use, the best platform to stream on, the best questions to ask, it'll be so obvious. But until then, it's gonna be like me stabbing at a water balloon all over again. Yeah, it's kind of nice how everything comes together, though. I didn't plan that. um, I don't know. It's because I ran out of stuff to say, you know. I ran out of stuff to say. I do think I've forgotten about how little I knew when I was younger. The acting was nice. You should use that as your character. I'm not sure. It's the thing about that is he literally kept me listening about poking a water balloon with a needle for over 10 minutes. The thing about that is it's very easy to get unhinged, right? I'm quite scared of that, where it's you can easily start talking about things you maybe shouldn't say. Yes, George. S. I agree. S. You can easily start talking about how much you hate, I don't know, everything. Which I maybe I have to be aware of putting a stop to things when I start talking about how much I hate everything. It's not, I don't think that's very helpful for anybody. I'm not sure how far I should censor myself. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I forgot how little I knew when I was younger. It's something that's always been super interesting for me because yeah, maybe I will try talking in a more story based way. I can try that. Because I'm not good at using a ton of words, but what I can do is use more descriptive language. I don't have too much trouble with that. So I can say something like, when I was a tiny girl with two little pigtails. When I was younger, I think this has a lot to do with my whole unschooling mentality too. So I'll try to keep the story kind of related to that, just to keep it tied together. Sounds like you're able to make about to make a rap. I'm not sure. Let's see if it becomes a rap. When I was a tiny little girl with little pigtails, the adult world seems so odd to me, cuz I don't know how many people when they're kids actually feel like they're a kid. I don't know how many feel like they're a kid. But for me, I think I can't really remember many moments where I felt like a kid. Maybe there were a few, but most of the time it was like, okay, This is me with my pigtails. I would just stand there and try to talk to people, but the thing is, I was always extremely aware of how adults talk differently to kids and versus like how they talk to other adults and how they talk to a kid was super different. Because when they talk to other adults, it would always be like very respectful and careful, and they would talk about very interesting things. So they would be like, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, like the other day that happened. That happened. Yes. Interesting. Oh yeah, that did you hear about that person that happened to that person? Oh, you heard about yeah, so how has it been going over there on your side of things? But then when they would talk to me, it would always be like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, isn't that a nice? Do you want some food? You should go play with the other kids. Is that a toy? Is that your toy?" And that was pretty much the to extent of everything. That's literally gossiping. What's gossiping? What's gossiping? Oh, the adults. Um, no, not gossiping. Just like keeping up with how everyone's doing, and it was always a very serious thing. But it was very confusing to me why adults will kneel down to talk to children. Because, yeah, they want to be closer to where the kid is at. But to me, it always made sense if they stood up, they would be showing the kid that they were where they were at. That was how my thinking always worked. Because when you lean down, you're showing that you're not safe as you are. I don't know. I was always very aware of that kind of stuff, though. So I'm really curious to know if other people have had similar experiences. But I'm trying to remember where I was going with this. Oh yeah. But mm, 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 mm. I'm trying to remember where I was going with this. I think if I keep talking, maybe I'll figure out where I was going with this. But do. Yeah, completely lost my train of thought. Okay, I remember now. Yeah, but basically, as a kid, I always felt like I knew more than what people gave me credit for knowing. That's the point I want to get to. Because I feel like um, a lot of times when older people would talk to me, they would assume a lot of things that I don't know. And then they would talk based on that. So they would dumb it down. And then when they talk to adults, it would be very different because it would be so much more serious. They would use a normal voice and they wouldn't lean down to talk. And that, for some reason, that always bothered me so much. And that kind of thinking carried on for a really long time. Where I mean, people say teenagers think they know everything, but definitely as a teenager, of course, I didn't feel like I knew everything, but I felt like I knew a lot more than I was giving credit for. And then the funny thing is, recently I've definitely felt like I've gotten older because what I realized was I don't know, I started noticing in younger people younger than me. For the first time I started noticing how there's definitely these gaps in knowledge, and how I started having these thoughts about how some younger people definitely do think they know more than they actually know. Um, which is really interesting when I think back to how I felt when I was younger. That was just the point I kind of wanted to cover. Because now I'm like, my younger self actually didn't know a lot. But when I remember back to being that version of myself, I think um definitely was more confident in my knowledge. It was more like I didn't know how to apply it. Maybe that's the part that was missing, but it's interesting. I guess I'm trying to say it's almost like I have that feeling I had when I was younger. I'm feeling that reversed feeling now. And that means I'm getting older. It means I'm getting older. I did think it had some relation with my mentality with unschooling though, but seem to have forgotten exactly what that relation was. So I won't mention it. I wonder when I feel older if I'm gonna see 20-year-olds and be like, what they think they know everything they're doing, but actually they know nothing. Probably. And then I'll look at 10-year-olds and be like, they're babies. 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 But I won't say if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I do think there's something to old people having a lot of wisdom, but the important thing here is that not all old people are wise, okay? That's a secret. Not all old people are wise. Some old people are wise. There's some truth to that. That's something that's really valued in some cultures. It's kind of dying off for several reasons, but there is some really nice truth to that. And I always hope as I get older that I will become more wise. And so I think one thing that helps with becoming more wise but not losing your respect for younger people, because I think there's a lot of importance to understanding each generation. This is something I'm actively trying to work on right now. There's something special about understanding each generation because each generation has a different mindset and there's a different culture surrounding them in the world at their time. And I think I would like to definitely, I'm feeling like I'm losing touch with, oh my gosh. I sound so old. I feel like I'm losing touch with younger people already. And I definitely want to understand that more. And so I can feel like, yeah, maybe they don't know some stuff I don't know, but I also want to be able to understand the world surrounding them. I really wonder how I should go about it though, because that's one thing that's good about interviews. It really helps you understand someone else, where they're coming from. This is the thing though. This is also why I really like the idea of having mixed age classrooms or growing up with people who are different ages, because you get to figure out how to be like in a caring role, as well as figure out how to seek help from older people. But when you're in the same when you're somewhere with the same aged people, it's very different. And especially when you don't have siblings, you don't really learn how to be in a caring role for people in who are similar age but maybe a little younger. It's definitely due to unschooling stuff, the not being able to understand younger people. It's definitely due to unschooling stuff more, because when you detach yourself from a schooling system, you immediately need to put more responsibility in yourself. And most people in their 20s are still delaying that sense of responsibility. That is a very interesting topic to talk about. There is definitely something about responsibility in school. Yeah. Because there's I think people are starting to realize it now, especially when a pandemic is making schools change and maybe change forever. And right now, all the classes have to be online. But with school, there's a promise that comes with school. And there's it's like a medicine, cuz if you believe that promise, it makes everything better. And it tells you it's okay, because we'll take care of some of your responsibilities for you. All you have to do is focus on following these rules and be a good student, be a good citizen, follow these rules, get your work done, advance humanity by learning all that humanity has left behind. But if you decide to leave school because you don't think it's for you, immediately all that reassurance gets stripped away. And you have to find that reassurance somewhere else. And that is a blessing and a curse at the same time. Since, yeah, finding that reassurance somewhere else is very anxiety inducing, especially if you had that blanket of school like wrapped around you for a really long time and you really believed in it. To have that stripped away all of a sudden is a lot to handle. And there's a concept called deschooling that a lot of unschooling families talk about, but it's basically a lot of times when somebody leaves the school system, and especially if they've been in the school system for a long time, it's a transitional period where usually someone who leaves school will suddenly feel like doing absolutely nothing. And I'm just talking about like younger kids in this situation, but in situations where younger kids will leave school, the parents are usually very concerned because they're like, we know school was causing so much stress and anxiety and blah 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 for this child, and now when they're out of school, how come it seems like they aren't doing any better, or suddenly they've lost all their motivation and they're lazy and they're not doing anything, or they're playing video games all day. And one way this is explained is as a transitional period, because it's like you have to decompress and figure out how to live without all these restrictions being placed on you. You don't have anyone to ask what to do anymore. You don't have to ask to go to the bathroom. You don't have a schedule to follow anymore. So imagine going from this super structured life where you have this constant anxiety addressing you to like telling you what to do next, and telling you if you do everything in this order, the end result will turn out okay. Your life will be okay. You'll be able to fulfill all those expectations put on you. And then when you have all of that taken away, of course someone's going to have to adjust to that. And one way people adjust to things is just to completely let go and completely lose motivation and just decompress, really, and not be interested in anything. It's a very natural thing. And then after that, usually what happens is that eventually that interest starts coming back. And I found that this is not only for school, but in my experience, when I'm burnt out with anything I'm doing, whether it's work, school, studies, I don't know, a friendship, or anything, after I've decided to leave that thing, or if I've decided to make a change, there's always this period of decompression, and it's very natural. And but also the fact that leaving school has such like a visible impact in the person who decides to leave the system is, I think it really says something about the school system. And then to see that happen so frequently, it's a pattern that a lot of people experience. It really says something about how powerful that anxiety or those expectations really drive that person. And the funny thing is, it doesn't even seem like it, especially when you're used to that kind of environment. It seems like a very natural thing. It seems like something you need to be successful in life, until it's once you've left it and you see all the detrimental, like it's like your body is purging something. Then you're like, wait a second, maybe there's more to that than I thought. I don't know. That's what I believe in the moment, you know. And then after you've, so this is coming back to it, but after you've gotten rid of all that, you realize that all of a sudden I'm not going to have anybody to tell me what to do every day anymore. I don't have homework. I don't have anybody telling me what to study tomorrow. Don't have anybody telling me what extracurricular activities I need to do. I don't have anybody telling me how many community hour service I need to fulfill. I don't have anywhere to go where I know, where I have a pool of people to choose from who could potentially become my friend. I don't have a room I need to go to at this time every morning, and then I need to go to that room at that time and that room at that time, and I can take a break at that time, but not that time at that day. But I can take a break that day, so I should work harder at this time so I can take a nicer break that day. When you lose all that structure, what happened for me at least is I realized at first there's that feeling of absolute freedom and exhilaration. It was like I was walking on clouds. It was absolute freedom. And it was amazing because it felt like I was so powerless. So powerless. Because I had lost all of that anxiety in such a quick, small period of time. With such a. Just stepping out of that school, and then that's all there was to it. But even though it was this powerlessness, it also felt like I could accomplish anything I wanted to. That's how it felt in that moment I left school. But of course that came crashing down pretty quickly. But I still remember that feeling, and sometimes I still do get that feeling, but it comes in much more subtle ways nowadays. Just listening at this makes me relieved of losing all that stuff. Yeah, it's not for everybody. There's also they call it radical unschooling. This is the part of the unschooling community I really don't agree with, and kind of the reason why I'm actually, after I looked into it more, I'm kind of feeling like I'm distancing myself from some of the beliefs, and maybe I don't belong with some of those beliefs. But it makes me a little uncomfortable. But since my concept of unschooling and my decision to leave school came when I was much older, I have a different definition and understanding of unschooling. But a lot of parents actually unschool their kids at a really young age, and there's the thing called radical unschooling, where unschooling is a lot about giving freedom to kids and letting them follow their interests instead of enforcing or forcing they call it compulsory education. But some parents will actually give absolute freedom to their kids in all aspects of life. So it's basically spoiling their kids. And if a child wants structure, or maybe if the child doesn't even want structure, but the parent won't give any structure at all. So it's like bedtime is anytime. You don't have to brush your teeth. You can eat as much sweets as you want. That kind of stuff. And that's something that I really don't agree with. There is that. So that's a part I really disagree with, because I think humans need structure. That's just something people need. Exactly, that's called bad parenting. Exactly. But right, being free isn't the same as being irresponsible. So that just really makes me so uncomfortable. And I think structure is something that needs to be learned in itself, actually. Because that's something that people are really good at doing. Like, we're good at creating structure and creating all these balances. that balance each other out. I mean, that's how people work as people. We have all these parts of ourselves which balance other parts of ourselves out and help us function through daily life. And then in society too, there's all these different parts of society which balance each other out, and those things are all created by us. So structure is very important, and it's important to embrace that ability to create structure. But when it's being able to create structure and like having the confidence and trust in yourself that you'll be able to follow goals or whatever you set out for yourself is very different from having those things forced upon you in a way where you're not allowed to say no to it. Yeah, I feel like this is becoming sort of a rant though. But it's good. I do think I'm talking about some things I wasn't really able to talk about before in relation to unschooling, because I'm definitely trying to drop some of the uncensor some of my stuffs. I'm trying to uncensor some of my beliefs, I would say. Yeah, because a school will act like, back to the idea of responsibility. I think a school sometimes acts a lot like an overbearing parent, and then there's this thing controlling a lot of your actions and what you're allowed to do during the day, who you're allowed to be with, all that kind of stuff. And when you lose that, all of a sudden you need to be that for yourself. And so if you compare that yourself being that for yourself with somebody who maybe didn't decide to leave school, who wasn't able to adapt that for themselves while they were in school, maybe there is a difference there in how those people would understand responsibility, or how they've learned how to be responsible for themselves. It's definitely more of, it's like if you decide to leave school, that whole idea of responsibility is very, it's like dunking your head in ice cold water, right? It's in your face. You can't ignore it. Whereas if you're in school, yeah, you could come to similar realizations, but it would be much more difficult. If you've decided to drop out, it comes all at you at once, and then you have to face it. So a lot of things when you decide to go a different way, a lot of things will just jump out at you, and you have to face the consequences of your choices. And the thing is, if you've made that decision for yourself, there's really nowhere to run. Absolutely nowhere to run. Why did I start talking about, why did we start talking about responsibility though? Oh yeah, with the people, right? With relating to younger people. It's a really strange feeling though, because I mean, I've always had trouble, this is more of a personal thing. It is actually old people rants. It is actually old people rants. But I mean, this is personal, but I've always had trouble relating to pop cultural trends, and current events, even with the same age group. So that's just been something I've always had trouble with, being interested in the same like pop culture stuff as people in my age group. But now with trying to relate to younger kids' pop culture trends is even more difficult. I don't know what to do. But I really do want to understand, that's the thing. But is that just me not accepting my oldness? That's another thing. Is it just me not accepting how old I've become? How can I relate to it in a way that I relate to my own generation when I don't even relate to my own generation that much? That's kind of my problem at the moment. Yeah, that's the end of that one. I might talk about that when I figured it out. uh it is you not using internet properly to find people like you. Yeah, that could be the case. The internet is one of the scariest things because of how powerful it is. Thing is, people will say there's nobody like them out there, but I guess if you can figure out how to use the internet properly, there's no way that's possible, right? Because how many people are you connected to through the internet? It's like, wait a sec, I'm just gonna keep going on a tangent here, but so yeah, I've been doing some marketing stuff, related stuff recently, but that's literally all about how you market yourself through the internet to people, though, to find the right people. Hmm. It's interesting if I think about it that way. Hmm. Hmm. Really though, I'm only 21 and I'm trying to think about how I can understand younger generations. Also knowing where to be. Where to be is a really good one. Where to be at the right time. What another thing that kind of popped into my mind this week was I was thinking about this, but a lot of times I will start hanging out with the right people or meet the right people when I'm about to move. When I'm about to move or leave something. And at those periods of my life, I seem to have more chances of being at the right place at the right time, showing up at the right place. And I was thinking about why that's the case. Um, and I was thinking maybe it's something to do with just having a lot of limitations come down. Because when you're about to move somewhere, you're not going to see those people again. And you're not going to have the chance to go those places again. So, you're just going to go out and try to meet people or hang out in places you don't normally hang out in, or you're trying to lose this old version of yourself in a way. Because when I was gonna move, when I was in that transitional period of moving from Japan, I started reaching out to people not only in real life, but also on the internet, which is very strange. Because I could have reached out to people on the internet anytime. The thing with younger generations now is that they are being born with stuff that most of us only got to know at older ages. I'm pretty sure it was always like that. Yeah, it was always like that, definitely. I remember when iPads came out. I forget how old I was, like some in my teens. But I remember I was so I was at this music school because I used to play violin, but there's this lady like wheeling her stroller and there's a baby there and they had come to watch a concert or something. But the baby was holding an iPad and playing on the iPad. It was like some sort of game or something. I don't know what it was, but maybe it wasn't a baby, maybe it was a toddler because I vaguely remember it might have been Candy Crush. I can't remember. But I remember thinking, oh my god, this baby's brain is gonna be fried. I mean, now I don't think that its brain would be fried. At the time I did, but I do think it does something to your attention span. Definitely. Definitely does something to your attention span. But people nowadays are living more on the internet too. But with the exponential growth of internet and the exposition to social media really makes way bigger of a difference. Yeah, the social media aspect of it. I really wonder how many kids nowadays are not into social media, if that's something you grew up with. If it were Candy Crush, the kid was fine. Yeah, Candy Crush is Tetris-esque. Now I think social media might really be the thing that does it to your attention span though. I don't know. Because I do know some people my age who really aren't into social media. But if you grew up with it, I really don't know. Like if you grew up, if the day you were born you already had a Facebook account, how would you feel about social media? I have to talk to younger kids about this. Thing is, I don't know how many younger kids would actually be willing to talk to me, see? Now that's the thing. How do you get kids to think you're cool? I don't know. I mean, when I was younger, um, I remember thinking a lot of teachers were super boring. But now that I'm older, I can see why they were boring. And that's kind of sad. That makes me sad. That makes me want to change. It makes me want to improve on myself. Do backflips, it works. That is good advice. I'm sure doing backflips would work. Backflip seems to work on most people. Do backflips. I don't know. I think you need a certain amount of openness that kids have, but I do think when you get older you lose that. Or you learn how to conceal it. Well, I feel like I've talked enough for today, to be honest. And I'm pretty happy with what I talked about so far. I don't know. Definitely it does seem like I talk in a different way every single time, but it's cool, I think. Um hmm. Just need to figure out how to reach out to more guests in a more time efficient way. And then figure out if I want to pre-record anything. Oh yeah, my YouTube banner still says this is at 10 p.m. It's at 8 p.m. now, obviously. However, I'm pretty disorganized and I couldn't find the original file for the thing. So I'll fix it, but um I'll have to type it out again. Yeah, I swear I saved the file in the right place, but I couldn't find it for some reason. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do a really quick fix here and change the number, but then I couldn't find the file, so that was that. But I'll fix that by next week. I'll try to fix it today. Um, what else is there to say? I don't know. I'm just gonna treat this as practice in a way. Treat this as practice at the same time as I'm gonna try to set the intention to say things that are made for someone who needs to hear it, if that makes any sense. And end it here. Oh yeah, I do have a Winnie the Pooh quote I wanted to end on. Winnie the Pooh. It's cheesy Winnie the Pooh quote, but it's nice. Cheesy but nice. Oh yeah, I didn't describe the podcast either. I need to remember to do that. But here's the quote. I'll try to say it with expressiveness and believing in it. Okay, ready? Okay. You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Christopher Robin. Yeah, I won't close the stream mid-sentence. I didn't close it mid-sentence, I swear. It's just that it cuts off early on YouTube for some reason. It doesn't do it on Twitch. Oh yeah, another thing I was thinking about was switching over to Twitch. Might be better. What if I'm narcissistic and have unrealistic expectations about myself? Well, that's okay. Actually, people who are narcissistic usually have really low self-esteem, but that's all right. I won't tell anyone. All right. I guess I'll try practicing describing the podcast just for practice. It's like I'm gonna fight. What is this podcast? What is it? Well, I talked about it at the start. This podcast, like, definition might have kind of changed though. Okay, I might say this in a really uncool way, but bear with me. I'll just say it in an uncool way. Maybe I'll change it the next time. This podcast is for anybody who... Why am I cracking up? Why can't I say it properly? This podcast is for... this podcast is about Emma rambling about anything when the guest doesn't show up. actually, though. Oh, God. Maybe if I edited some of these rambles, it would actually be interesting. Probably not. This podcast is for anybody. Oh my God. Okay. I need to stop. See, this is professionalism, right? Professionalism. This podcast is for anybody who is really into learning. This podcast is for anybody. No. This podcast is for anybody who is really into learning and who isn't afraid to admit that. And also for people who have taken unconventional steps with their education. And also for people who have an entrepreneurial streak and creative problem-solving streak. When they see a problem, they want to solve it in a creative way. Oh God, why am I talking like this? What is this behind you? What are you talking about? My door or my clutter? Who? Oh, I'm living with my parents. No, actually it's like a cat that is very big and it stands on two legs and it stomps around the house. No, okay. I'm gonna end this podcast now before it gets too awkward. Okay. Ow. Oh, why did I say ow? Goodbye.